First of all, I hope that this informational session, does everybody like it? Because we'll sponsor one every 6 months, yeah? Yeah? Right on. Information, that's what it's all about. First of all, well, right here we got our next speaker, and we're going to bring on our last speaker of the night. Then we're going to open it up for a Q&A session. When this next speaker's done, if you have a number to ask a question, if you went up and got a number, I ask you to place yourselves in seats on either mic, in the chairs closest to both mics that are in the middle of the floors. Right there, you'll see one right there and over there. And then we'll get into the Q&A session. I know some of you have some excellent questions tonight. Our next speaker, Matt Cook, is one of the authors of HB 1284. Matt started his career in regulatory law enforcement in 1982 with the City of Colorado Springs. In 1991, Matt moved to the Colorado Liquor Enforcement Division, where he managed licensing, complex investigations, and retail enforcement in the Denver metro area, and was also responsible for all legislation, rulemaking, and local authority training for the division. Matt is a strong advocate of standardizing background investigations and has worked extensively in this area with the Congressional Compact Council and Department of Justice. He was appointed director of the Colorado Liquor Enforcement Division in 2003, where he remained until retiring in February of 2007. Matt returned to state government in July 2007 when he was appointed as the Senior Director of Enforcement. He currently provides oversight for the Department of Revenue's enforcement line of business, which is comprised of gaming, liquor, and tobacco enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, and I really appreciate him being here tonight, let's welcome Matt Cook.
It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and up front I want to thank Mike and Kush organization for sponsoring and hosting this event, and I'd also really like to take a moment to thank all of you for participating and staying at this late hour to hear me yak. I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to introduce one of my counterparts, Dan Hartman. Dan, if you haven't, would you stand up for a moment? Dan Hartman is currently the director. Dan is currently the director of the Division of Racing Events and was recently appointed as the chairman of Racing Commissioners International, which is an international dog and horse racing industry association. And so he has some duties with that organization, but he's ultimately the guy that is going to be responsible for regulating this industry. The reality is, as you heard from my bio, I have 7 different divisions that I'm involved with. Time is pretty thin for me. But the reality is he has commitments he has to take. I get that, and we work together pretty good. We've worked together since 1991. He's still with me. That probably says a whole lot about you, Dan, but be that as it may, we're excited about the opportunity to engage in the regulatory processes with this industry. We were the lucky ones appointed to do this, and I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. We take our charge very seriously. I'm very excited about where Colorado could go with this piece of legislation and what we can do, not only for Colorado, but on a national basis as well. So we look forward to working with you to implement this legislation. I'll give you that on the front end. A few things I want to talk about. I want to first give you a little bit information about our philosophy. You never really know what card you're going to draw when you're playing poker, and the same is true of administrators in this arena. And I think it's critical that you at least understand a little bit about Dan and I, where we're coming from philosophically and how we intend to move forward. It sort of sets the stage for everything to happen in the next year. I then want to talk to you a little bit about the cash fund structure that we have to regulate this industry, and how that works, and how fees will be set up, why they're set up the way they are, why they're going to be the way they are for at least the first year, and really the advantage to the cash fund over a general fund appropriation. Generically then, I want to address some of the timelines that are set forth in HB 1284, critical timelines. And last but not least, I want to talk about the rulemaking process, which in my mind will really make or break this industry in the next year. And the only way rulemaking works is if we do it together. So I hope that I will have people in this room participating in that process. As I said, philosophically, as I look through 1284, and as was mentioned, I was a participant in helping draft some of those things. As you heard Bob Dill say, and Bob, I'll give you the $5 for those kind words when we're done here, but I regulated the liquor industry for about 30 years, and I understand regulatory processes, and I understand partnerships, and really what it takes to make those regulatory processes work. The only way it works is if there's open and free communication. It's critical. This industry will not survive if there's not open communication, two-way communication between the regulators and the industry that is regulated. There are a number of people in this room today that I've had a sincere pleasure of meeting with. I've spent several hours with many of you over the past several months, and I think if you didn't get the answers you were looking for, I think you would probably agree that I'm very communicative, and I don't have any hidden agendas or any of those kind of things. I'm a person of integrity, as is Dan. We want to do what's right for this industry. One of the first people I had the pleasure of meeting when I was told I was a lucky guy was Matt Brown. We met downtown, had coffee, and had at-length discussions about where things needed to go, and I certainly appreciate his candor, the wisdom that he brings to this industry as well. Again, with that said, or I should say HB 1284, as many of the speakers tonight have mentioned, is certainly not a perfect piece of legislation. And if you've been involved with the legislative process, it really does involve give and take. And oftentimes it's horse trading is what it is. But the reality is local government asked for something, and HB 1284 is really what they ended up with. I will commit to the industry that as we work through this during the next year, if there are things that need to be changed or things that we've missed, things that just simply don't work in that bill, we have another legislative session in January of the next year before the entire bill actually goes into effect July of the following year, July 11th, that I'm hopeful we can march to the legislature side by side to address some of those issues. And when you do that, the industry and the regulators have the ability to march and unify to the legislature. Generally, they don't ask too many questions. They get it right out of the box. So, again, there will be many changes. I perceive HB 1284 as a work in progress. As I said, from my perspective, I didn't get everything I wanted, and I don't think those in this room that worked on it. You heard Rob say he opposed many facets of the bill, but that's the beauty of the system. There are public policy decisions that are made, and oftentimes they're held accountable for those decisions. Oftentimes they set truly the laws and guidelines or regulatory framework in this case for us to move forward, and we'll abide by it. I take that charge very seriously, very seriously. I can tell you one of the first things that I've started doing is to reach out to the industry as a whole. I've had discussions with patients, I've talked to growers, I've talked to centers or dispensary owners, I've talked to health departments. I've even reached out to the DEA to find out where they're going to stand with this, and I believe that's a critical component for Colorado to move forward. We need to have an understanding, and I'm hopeful that I can have the ability to have communication with them and bring that information back to you so everybody will be playing from the same sheet of music. It's a critical component. The regulatory scheme itself is not new. It's certainly not rocket science from my perspective, and it's not something that's unique to Colorado. It's something that is used nationally in many occupations, and it's proved itself time and time again. And there are three components to it. Simply education, compliance, and enforcement. I think that the first of those three elements, the education piece, is probably the most critical. From a regulatory standpoint, I find it really hard to expect certain things of the industry if they're not aware of what those things are. And again, through the rulemaking work groups and the process that will happen over the next year, I'm hopeful that we'll all be on the same page. I know the Kush organization, Mike, has volunteered his publication for us to use as a conduit to get the information out to you.